What if I told you that in the next minutes, you could uncover a truth that redefines how you see your everyday world? We often rush through life, caught in a cycle of efficiency and utility, barely glancing at the things around us. But what if in these very next minutes, we could begin to understand why some things resonate deeply, why some spaces uplift us, and why the absence of beauty leaves us feeling inexplicably empty? This isn't about fleeting trends or superficial appearances. It's about a fundamental human need, a profound connection that shapes our well-being, our ethics, and even our collective future. So, let's use these next minutes to explore why beauty isn't just a luxury, but an essential language of our soul. Somewhere along the way, we seem to forget beauty, not with a bang, but a whimper, a quiet retreat from something that once compelled us to stop, stare, and feel profoundly small in its presence. This wasn't an act of deliberate destruction, but a gradual, insidious forgetting. And in forgetting, we began to construct a world where beauty increasingly feels out of place, a relic of a less efficient past. The early 20th century witnessed a profound shift. 2 world wars, genocide, the Holocaust, Hiroshima. Humanity confronted a monstrous reflection in the mirror of its own making. The classical ideals of harmony, order, and hope, so central to traditional notions of beauty, felt like a cruel deception in the shadow of such horrors. Art turned inward. Architecture became starkly brutalist, and the sublime gave way to the shattered, the fragmented. A new aesthetic emerged, one steeped in irony, distrust, and a pervasive sense of fragmentation. Meaning itself became suspect, and beauty even more so. The prevailing sentiment was that if something appeared beautiful, it was likely concealing a more unpleasant truth. Consequently, we embraced the raw, the broken, the seemingly meaningless, labeling it real, a raw, unvarnished truth unburdened by the pretense of aesthetic grace. In architecture, this translated into unapologetic, concrete behemoths, buildings reduced to functional, emotionless boxes of glass, steel, and grey. The very notion of beauty was dismissed as a bourgeois fantasy, a frivolous distraction from the real work of societal construction and reconstruction. In the realm of art, provocation aggressively displaced beauty. The goal was to disturb rather than to delight, to offend in order to enlighten. A banana duct taped to a wall, a urinal rebranded as sculpture. The audience's confusion became an integral, even celebrated part of the performance. Beauty was no longer an aspiration, but a concept to be deconstructed, dissected, and exposed as illusory. Even language itself mirrored this cultural shift, reducing aesthetics to a mere synonym for style without soul, a shallow hashtag, or a marketing strategy for branding. The profound, resonant power of beauty was diluted into a superficial commodity. Yet, beneath this pervasive cultural amnesia, a profound and unquenchable hunger persists. We crave something we have been systematically taught not to need, or even to actively distrust. We seek out the ancient silence of forests and the poignant decay of ancient ruins, not for their functional utility, but because they stir something wordless, primal, and essential within us. We light candles in dim rooms, gaze intently at the mesmerizing dance of fire, weep spontaneously at the majesty of sunsets, and meticulously decorate graves. Why do we cling to these seemingly irrational acts? Because intrinsically, we recognize that beauty is not optional. It is fundamental. It is not a mere luxury, but a profound language, a way of apprehending meaning beyond the confines of words, a mode of being in the world that transcends mere biological survival and touches upon the sacred realm of reverence. As the philosopher Roger Scruton presciently observed, "Beauty is vanishing from our world because we live as though it does not matter." This statement resonates ever more deeply in our increasingly utilitarian landscape. Our public spaces are starkly sterile, devoid of inviting human scale or ornament. Our schools often resemble carceral institutions, and our hospitals depersonalizing warehouses. Our homes are mere rectangles filled with mass-produced plastic. Music is algorithmically compressed and devoid of dynamic range. Images are filtered into bland uniformity. Everything is relentlessly faster, louder, cheaper, and yet paradoxically profoundly emptier. The pervasive lie that function is all that matters has proven to be not merely a philosophical error, but a profoundly costly one, leading to tangible human suffering. When we surround ourselves with ugliness, we do not merely endure aesthetic discomfort. We suffer spiritually, emotionally, and even morally. Ugliness makes the world not only harder to look at, but profoundly harder to care about. The distinction between spaces built with genuine care and love and those constructed with indifference is palpable. One invites and embraces, the other repels and diminishes. Consider your daily existence. Where do you genuinely encounter beauty? Not the filtered, photoshopped virtual beauty of screens, but real, lived beauty. A space that invites a deep breath, a moment that compels genuine pause, a design that unequivocally lifts your spirit. Are these experiences common or tragically rare? For many, beauty has been relegated to a distant tourist destination, a fleeting weekend escape, rather than an integral daily experience. A culture that views beauty as a vacation, not a necessity, risks becoming perpetually restless, anxious, and profoundly numb. This existential malaise manifests clearly in widespread burnout, constant noise, an escalating mental health crisis, and the relentless cynicism that permeates online interactions. We have constructed a world that is fast, yet hollow, intelligent yet hostile, and despite countless technological updates, something remains profoundly amiss. We are undeniably living in a beautyless world. In such a world, once obvious values, protecting nature, respecting elders, honoring craftsmanship, fostering community, begin to seem alien, even foolish. This erosion of beauty directly contributes to the insidious rise of nihilism. When the world loses its aesthetic coherence, when its forms cease to express inherent meaning or purpose, the human mind struggles to find value beyond transient utility. If there is no inherent beauty, no intrinsic resonance in the world, then what is there to strive for beyond immediate gratification or survival? If the world is merely a collection of raw, unadorned facts, devoid of any qualitative dimension that calls forth admiration or reverence, then life itself can begin to feel arbitrary, meaningless, and ultimately valueless. This is the core of nihilism, the belief that life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. A world stripped of beauty is a world ripe for this despairing conclusion. Beauty once served as our conduit to the sacred, reminding us that life possessed meaning beyond mere utility, that we were not just consumers, but participants in something larger, older, and mysterious. Without beauty, we become rootless, pragmatic, and cynical, thinking solely in terms of efficiency, profit, and measurable impact. Yet, the most profound aspects of existence, grace, dignity, gentleness, awe, fundamentally defy measurement. These are the very lessons beauty imparted. We desperately need it back, not as a nostalgic indulgence or a superficial luxury, but as a crucial, transformative form of resistance against the encroaching emptiness. To truly comprehend why beauty matters, we must revisit its rich historical and philosophical context. For the vast majority of human history, beauty was understood not as a superficial adornment, but as a profound bridge between the visible and the invisible, the material and the spiritual. It offered a fleeting yet powerful glimpse of the eternal, through the fragile and transient, a silent language spoken across millennia, transcending individual epochs and cultures. Plato, in his seminal Symposium, articulated this connection with stunning clarity and poetic depth. For him, beauty was not merely a pleasant sensation, it was a ladder, scala amoris, a path, a demanding ascent. He described a kind of spiritual journey. Initially, we are captivated by physical beauty, face a body, the breathtaking sweep of a sunset. But if we pursue that initial feeling not with lustful desire, but with genuine wonder and intellectual curiosity, it leads us towards deeper, more profound forms of beauty. This includes the beauty of minds, of ideas, of virtuous actions, and, ultimately, the beauty of institutions and laws. Each step upwards on this ladder purifies our understanding, moving us away from the particular and towards the universal. The ultimate goal is to arrive at beauty itself, pure, formless, eternal, unchanging, perfect. This is the form of beauty, residing in the realm of forms, and it is inextricably linked to the good and the true. For Plato, the beautiful and the good were inseparable twins. To see something truly beautiful was to be reminded of what is intrinsically good and true. The sight of beauty stirred the very soul, because the soul deep down remembered the transcendent realm from which it originated, a realm of absolute harmony, perfect order, and pure light. Thus for Plato, beauty was not skin deep, it was soul deep, a yearning for the absolute. Aristotle, Plato's student, grounded these concepts more practically. For him, beauty was rooted in proportion, harmony, and purpose, telos. A thing was beautiful when it fully realized its nature and fulfilled its inherent purpose. A tree that grew strong, symmetrical, and yielded abundant fruit was beautiful because it had realized its potential as a tree. A virtuous life, lived well and in accordance with reason, was beautiful for the same reason. This teleological view imbues beauty with a sense of inherent rightness and fulfillment. Centuries later, during the Enlightenment, Immanuel Kant introduced another crucial layer to the understanding of beauty. Kant argued that the experience of beauty bestows upon us a rare kind of freedom, a moment of disinterested pleasure. When we gaze at a painting, a face, or a flower, and feel that strange, quiet joy, we do not desire to buy it, consume it, or conquer it. We simply want to behold it for its own sake. This disinterested pleasure, as Kant termed it, represents one of the purest states of human awareness. For a brief, fleeting moment, our egos dissolve. We are not preoccupied with ourselves, our needs, or our desires. We are simply present, utterly absorbed by something that seems to carry meaning beyond its immediate function, meaning beyond mere survival. And that transcendent presence profoundly changes us, offering a fleeting glimpse of the possibility of objective harmony. This brings us to Simone Weil, the mystical philosopher and political activist of the 20th century, whose insights on beauty are particularly poignant in our fragmented age. Weil profoundly believed that beauty was not a luxury, but a rigorous discipline of attention. The love of beauty, she wrote, is the only effective way to detach our attention from ourselves. Consider the radical implications of this statement. In a world consumed by self-image, self-promotion, and relentless self-protection, beauty offers a profound invitation to forget ourselves, to surrender, for a precious moment, our endless internal monologue, the anxieties, the calculations, the desires, and become utterly available to the world again. To truly see a tree, to truly hear a musical note, to feel genuine awe rather than a predetermined agenda. This act is anything but passive. It is profoundly radical. Why radical? Because, as Weil understood, attention is the very foundation of morality. If you cannot truly attend to the world, if you cannot see its intricate details and nuances, then you cannot truly care for it, let alone act ethically within it. This is why beauty matters, not just for the eyes, but for the soul. When we encounter beauty, we are confronted with something that resists reduction, that cannot be simply explained away or commodified. It doesn't ask for explanation. It doesn't require utility. It simply is, and its very existence commands respect, reverence, and a quality of attention that transcends mere utility. This profound concept of beauty as a moral and spiritual force resonates deeply with the thought of Fyodor Dostoevsky, particularly through his character Prince Mishkin in The Idiot. Mishkin's famous, often misunderstood declaration that beauty will save the world is not a simplistic endorsement of aestheticism or superficial prettiness. For Dostoevsky, this beauty is intrinsically linked to moral goodness, truth, and spiritual illumination. It is the beauty found in humility, compassion, and the capacity for boundless love and self-sacrifice, even amidst profound suffering and human depravity. Dostoevsky's beauty is not merely about physical appearance or artistic form. It is a profound, internal state, an expression of ultimate human and divine perfection. It is a beauty that encompasses tragedy and imperfection, yet still points towards a redemptive, ultimate divine truth. While the direct quote is found in The Idiot, the underlying theme permeates the brothers Karamazov. Here, characters like Dmitry Karamazov grapple with the terrifying and sacred duality of beauty, recognizing its capacity to uplift and to destroy. For Dostoevsky, true beauty possesses a divine spark, capable of awakening the dormant conscience and guiding humanity towards ethical and spiritual transformation. It is this transcendent, suffering, and morally demanding beauty, not merely aesthetic pleasure, that holds the potential for salvation in a world riddled with sin and suffering. It's a beauty that demands moral engagement and spiritual depth rather than passive admiration or superficial consumption. It requires a profound act of attention, much as Wilde prescribed. In every philosophical, spiritual, and artistic tradition, beauty has served as a critical signpost. It is a subtle yet powerful signal that there is more to life than mere existence, that somewhere woven into the very fabric of things, there is order, there is grace, there is profound meaning. Think of the towering cathedrals built over centuries by hands that knew they would never witness the final stone, testaments to a belief in enduring beauty. Think of Persian carpets, whose meticulous makers intentionally wove in a small floor to humbly honor the idea that only God is perfect. Think of haiku, capturing eternity in a mere 17 syllables. These are not acts of efficiency, they are profound acts of devotion. Beauty was not a product, it was a practice, a posture toward the world, an expression of reverence. Yet today, we have reduced it to content, an algorithm, a fleeting trend. We swipe endlessly through images designed to hook the eye for a fraction of a second, not to open the soul. We meticulously curate digital feeds, not meaning. We dangerously confuse beauty with fleeting attention, yet attention is easily bought and manipulated. True beauty, however, cannot be manufactured or synthetically produced, because true beauty reveals, but fundamentally cannot be explained away. It lives in the subtle, the still, the sacred, the trembling hush in a concert hall just before the symphony begins, the golden light slanting through old windows in a silent church, the authentic laugh lines around the eyes of someone who has loved deeply and lost well. Beauty is not perfection, it is profound presence. It is the quiet echo of things that truly matter, and when we deny it, ignore it, or mock it, we do not become smarter, we become profoundly poorer, because beauty, real beauty, enlarges us. It reminds us that we are not merely machines, that we are not solely useful, that we are made for something far more than mere efficiency. It reminds us that the soul has hungers that no amount of data or material consumption can ever truly feed. So, if we genuinely wonder why the world feels thin, brittle, anxious, and devoid of genuine joy, perhaps it is precisely because we have lost the very thing that once made life feel truly meaningful. We have forgotten how to see beauty, and perhaps tragically how to live beautifully. But the good news is this: beauty waits. It has not vanished into thin air. It has not died. It waits patiently in silence, in shadows, in margins. It waits to be discovered in poetry, in acts of kindness, in meticulous craftsmanship, in the raw power of nature. It waits for eyes that are willing to truly see and hearts willing to remember. To understand why beauty matters, we must acknowledge something fundamental. Human perception is not neutral. We do not experience the world as detached, objective observers. Our minds inherently seek patterns, order, and meaning, and beauty often serves as a powerful signal for all three. From the earliest stages of evolution, humans have instinctively responded to symmetry, proportion, and harmony, not because they were merely decorative, but because they offered vital information. A symmetrical face could indicate health and genetic fitness. A clear, ordered landscape often signified safety and abundant resources. In this primal sense, beauty functioned as a perceptual shorthand for coherence and viability, a critical tool for survival. This innate response is far from obsolete. Contemporary research in neuroscience consistently confirms that aesthetic perception remains a deeply embedded part of our cognitive architecture. When an individual encounters something they perceive as beautiful, be it a Renaissance painting, a sprawling natural landscape, or a meticulously designed building, there is consistent and measurable activity in specific regions of the brain, particularly the medial orbitofrontal cortex. This area is not merely a pleasure center. It is actively involved in complex judgment, valuation, and ethical reasoning. In essence, beauty is not superfluous to cognition. It is an intrinsic component of how we evaluate and make sense of the world around us. This insight effectively dismantles the reductive notion that beauty is purely subjective. While individual taste undoubtedly varies, the fundamental human response to aesthetic order, to proportion, unity, rhythm, and coherence follows certain underlying neurological patterns. There is a cognitive architecture that underpins what we universally recognize as beauty, an architecture that transcends specific cultural particularities without denying their rich variations. When this inherent cognitive architecture is nourished by beautiful surroundings, human behavior demonstrably changes. Studies in environmental psychology have repeatedly shown that individuals perform better, recover faster from illness, and interact more ethically and cooperatively in environments designed with aesthetic care. Hospital patients exposed to natural views heal more rapidly and require less pain medication. Students in well-designed, aesthetically pleasing schools learn more effectively and exhibit fewer behavioral problems. Workers in aesthetically considered spaces report lower stress levels, higher levels of focus, and greater job satisfaction. These are not trivial outcomes. They point to something essential. Beauty does not just affect how we feel, it profoundly affects how we function as cognitive, emotional, and social beings. What emerges from this research is a striking asymmetry. Beauty, when present consistently, improves human outcomes. But when beauty is absent, the consequences are not neutral, they are demonstrably negative. In environments devoid of aesthetic consideration, sterile, chaotic, or degrading spaces, we often observe the opposite effects: disorientation, heightened anxiety, cognitive fatigue, and increased aggression. Urban studies consistently show that in sterile or chaotic architectural settings, people become more prone to aggression, social disengagement, and cognitive overload. The human mind inherently resists disorder and incoherence. When the external world appears fragmented or incoherent, so too can our internal experience. This is not merely a matter of personal preference or taste. It is an issue of cognitive ecology, the fundamental relationship between the built environment and the intricate structures of human attention, emotion, and well-being. Yet much of modern architecture, urban planning, and digital design remains remarkably indifferent to these crucial findings. Efficiency, cost-effectiveness, and scalability are relentlessly prioritized, while aesthetic integrity is frequently treated as expendable an elitist indulgence, or an afterthought. The tragic result is a world increasingly dominated by abstraction, buildings stripped of all ornament and human scale, screens saturated with visual noise and fleeting stimuli, cities designed for rapid flow rather than genuine presence or human connection. And the profound consequence is a diminished public life, not only in terms of visual quality, but more critically, in terms of what we are collectively willing to imagine, tolerate, and defend. Here lies a crucial and often overlooked point. The absence of beauty is not merely an aesthetic failing. It has profound ethical implications. When we are consistently exposed to environments that are barren, disordered, or hostile to human perception, we become desensitized. We begin to lower our expectations, not just of our physical surroundings, but of ourselves and, critically, of others. Aesthetic degradation, therefore, subtly but powerfully prepares the ground for moral indifference, for a diminished capacity for empathy and care. This intimate connection between the aesthetic and the ethical is far from new. Philosophers from Aristotle to Kant, and more recently thinkers like Iris Murdoch and Elaine Scarry, have powerfully argued that the very perception of beauty actively cultivates attention, and attention, as Simone Weil so eloquently stated, is a fundamental precondition for ethical life. To truly see beauty is to learn how to see, to notice, to care, to respond with sensitivity. Beauty, in this profound sense, trains the eye and disciplines the soul, making us more attuned to the nuances of the world and the reality of others. What we find beautiful profoundly shapes what we value, and what we value in turn shapes what we are willing to preserve, protect, or destroy. Thus, to systematically strip the world of beauty is not merely a stylistic choice. It is a fundamental philosophical stance, one that implicitly redefines human experience as purely transactional, utilitarian, and ultimately hollow. It is often erroneously assumed that beauty is a luxury, something optional that can be added once the essential work of society is done. But this reverses the actual, foundational order of things. Beauty is not the decoration of existence. It is a core part of what anchors it, what gives it coherence. Amidst fragmentation, it reminds us that form matters, not just brute function, that how something appears is an integral part of what it is. We are not disembodied minds floating in abstraction. We are embodied creatures. What we see, hear, and feel profoundly matters. The quality of our sensory environment directly becomes the quality of our consciousness, and that is why beauty is not trivial. It is cognitive infrastructure. It orders our attention. It frames our experience. It educates our deepest desires. To neglect beauty is to neglect the very conditions under which thought, care, and genuine human connection can truly thrive. The aesthetic dimension of human experience extends far beyond individual perception. It fundamentally shapes our collective ethical imagination. To engage seriously with why beauty matters is to recognize its indispensable role in how we conceive of the good, the just, and the meaningful. Philosophers from Plato onward have intrinsically linked beauty to truth and goodness, framing it not as mere appearance but as a powerful manifestation of moral reality. Beauty, in this classical sense, is integrally connected to moral form, the very structure through which we apprehend and aspire toward ethical ideals. When beauty is present, it calls forth attention and respect. It demands that we pause, reflect, and consider. This sustained attentiveness is foundational for moral judgment. It is the essential condition under which empathy, compassion, and responsibility can genuinely arise. To perceive a work of art, a natural landscape, or even an act of kindness as beautiful is to immediately acknowledge its significance beyond mere utility or personal gain. Conversely, the pervasive presence of ugliness, understood not only as physical deformity but as disarray, neglect, degradation, and social chaos, has a profoundly corrosive effect on moral sensibility. Ugliness actively disrupts coherence. It fractures perception. It invites dismissal and indifference. When societies tolerate or even actively produce environments that are aesthetically and morally disfigured, space is marred by neglect, degradation, or violent disorder. They risk cultivating a pervasive form of moral apathy. The disintegration of the aesthetic order tragically parallels the disintegration of ethical order. This phenomenon is well documented in urban studies. Areas marked by neglect and decay consistently experience higher rates of social dysfunction, including crime, alienation, and a general breakdown of civic trust. The broken windows theory of criminology explicitly links visible physical disorder with social disorder, suggesting that visual cues of neglect embolden moral transgressions. Thus, ugliness is not a neutral condition. It is both an ethical symptom and a dangerous catalyst for further decay. It signals a profound failure, not only of design, but of genuine care, both civic and personal. The relationship between beauty and morality is dialectical. Beauty fosters moral imagination, which in turn motivates the pursuit and preservation of beauty. Moral imagination, the indispensable capacity to envision others' experiences, to anticipate consequences, and to conceive of alternative, more just realities, depends heavily on the ability to perceive form, order, and connection in the world. Without this capacity, ethical reasoning becomes abstract, detached, and ultimately ineffective. Iris Murdoch powerfully argued that the aesthetic experience trains the soul in attention, the sustained and disciplined focus that allows us to recognize the concrete reality of others. For Murdoch, attention is the most potent antidote to egoism and moral blindness. Beauty, by its very nature commanding genuine attention, cultivates a posture of openness, humility, and moral receptivity. In practical terms, this means that when we seriously engage with beauty, we cultivate a mindset profoundly conducive to ethical behavior. We learn to respect complexity, to tolerate ambiguity, and to recognize the inherent value in difference. This is precisely why the degradation of beauty represents a profound social issue. It is not only about the quality of our physical surroundings, but about what kinds of futures we enable or tragically foreclose for ourselves and future generations. If a society neglects the aesthetic dimension, it risks fostering indifference toward injustice, inequality, and suffering. Ugliness becomes a subtle but pervasive form of violence, not in the dramatic overt sense, but as a slow, insidious erosion of the very conditions necessary for a thriving moral life. Restoring beauty, then, is not merely a matter of urban planning or art appreciation. It is a matter of profound ethical restoration. It involves a renewed and intentional commitment to environments and practices that unequivocally affirm human dignity, recognize our deep interconnectedness, and nurture collective well-being. To recognize the ethical weight of beauty is to demand more than superficial fixes or cosmetic improvements. It is to insist that the design of our world be a direct reflection of our highest values, values that prioritize care, coherence, respect, and a belief in shared flourishing. In this light, the question, why does beauty matter, becomes inseparable from the much larger question, what kind of society do we truly want to live in, and what kind of human beings do we aspire to be? To answer one is to engage inevitably and profoundly with the other. If beauty is foundational to cognition and ethics, and its pervasive absence signals social and moral decay, then the conscious cultivation of beauty becomes not only an aesthetic choice, but a potent act of resistance, resistance to fragmentation, to alienation, and to the creeping despair of nihilism. In the contemporary world, dominated by relentless technological change, commodification of experience, and a culture of pervasive distraction, the space for genuine aesthetic experience is increasingly precarious, Mass media, unchecked urban sprawl, and digital uniformity often promote a sterile and superficial vision, one that reduces beauty to mere branding, fleeting novelty, or algorithmically generated content. Yet, history consistently teaches us that beauty, when taken seriously and deeply, functions as a powerful bulwark against these corrosive tendencies. Consider how marginalized communities throughout history have strategically employed beauty as a fundamental form of cultural resilience. Whether expressed through vibrant street murals, soul-stirring music, rich ritual practices, or expressive fashion, acts of aesthetic creation powerfully affirm identity, preserve memory, and foster belonging. These are not frivolous acts, but deeply strategic ones, asserting presence and humanity in contexts that may actively seek to erase or commodify them. Beauty, in this profound sense, is an assertion of meaning and agency in the face of pressures to conform or disappear on a four. Broader scale, architects, designers, and urban planners have long debated the precise social role of beauty. Some argue convincingly that aesthetically rich environments cultivate public virtue, encourage social cohesion, and promote psychological well-being. Others, often driven by a narrow functionalism, dismiss beauty as elitist or irrelevant to pragmatic concerns like cost or efficiency. However, if we accept the compelling evidence from neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy, particularly the insights of Plato, Kant, Weil, and Dostoevsky, this false dichotomy collapses entirely. Beauty is neither luxury nor ornament. It is profoundly structural, an integral part of the human condition. To intentionally build beauty into our cities, our institutions, and our technologies is, in effect, to actively build the foundational conditions for authentic human flourishing. This requires profound intentionality. It demands that beauty be consciously integrated into public policy, educational curricula, and economic decisions. It means recognizing that any form of cost-cutting or efficiency that sacrifices aesthetic quality is, in effect, a profound form of social and spiritual impoverishment. Crucially, it also means reclaiming individual responsibility. In our daily lives, the conscious choices we make, from the objects we choose to surround ourselves with, to the way we engage with art, nature, and even our fellow human beings, reflect a commitment to beauty as a fundamental mode of attention and care. Philosophically, this aligns with the idea that beauty is a profound practice, not merely a passive object to be consumed. It is cultivated through diligent habit, disciplined attention, and shared community. The stakes of this practice are extraordinarily high. In an age marked by accelerating ecological crisis, escalating political polarization, and pervasive social fragmentation, beauty offers a vital path to re-enchantment. It invites us to see the world once again as inherently worthy of our deepest attention and most profound care. This is not escapism, but a sober, urgent recognition that how we relate to our environment, both natural and built, directly and profoundly affects the health of our societies and the very depth of our humanity. In sum, beauty matters because it is an indispensable condition for knowledge, for ethical life, and for a vibrant, meaningful culture. Its presence or absence profoundly influences how we think, how we act, and how we coexist. Its intentional cultivation is an act of profound philosophical and political significance, one that actively shapes the future of our shared world, and indeed the very essence of what it means to be human.